I'm going to be discussing a bug here that occurs in the test text replacement in sports photo automation when you're testing the replacement on your text. Now this bug occurs with a very specific setup of text layers, so you only see it if your text layers were scaled in a certain way. And the bug is also only in the test section, and you will never see this occur during an actual batch. So you don't have to worry about this occurring when you're batching images. But when you're testing your text replacement, if you see this, you may not know why it's occurring and what to do about it. So I'm just going to first demonstrate and just replace this with a smaller text value here with a less amount of characters. And we'll use scale mode X. Okay, you see that it replaced the text. I'm going to go back in and do that again and then increase the number of letters here. Let's do something larger here, like yellow jackets. So now you see that with the letters, some of the letters are larger and then the rest are smaller. So if you see that, you're not going to know what's going on. I'm going to show you here why this occurs. I'm not going to go, I guess, too much into the specifics of why, but I'm going to show you what specific template setup is causing this to occur and how to prevent this. And again, this will not happen during your batch, so don't worry about that. I'll also point out that after you know how to set your templates up, most people don't even go back into this test area. This is more of a learning thing, but you still want to know what to do if you do see this though. So the specific way that this occurs is when you scale your text. I'll just demonstrate here because there's different ways to scale your text, but if you scale it using the scale tool after you've created it. So let's first create this text. Let's make it 50 points. Then we'll come into our setup our PSD layer and let's convert that to point text. Oh, I need to name it first. Let's call it team name. Now let's convert to point text. All right, so there's two ways you can size the text if you wanted to change the size. And the first way is you could come up in here and just change the size. Now, if you do that, you're never going to see this issue if that's how you're always resizing your text. But instead, if you Control T or Command T on Mac to scale your text, this is when you see that problem occur, is when you've resized your text via scaling. And what's actually happening inside of Photoshop is it doesn't actually store this value for the text in the PSD file. It's storing that original value you made with it. And in addition, it's storing a scaling factor. So instead of just storing a value, it's storing two numbers that it has to do math to make this size. And that's causing this bug that we see because it's reverting some of those characters back to that size. So now once we've made it like this, we go into our text replacement. And it's usually when going, well, it's pretty much always when going from a smaller amount of characters to a larger amount of characters. And this only occurs when running this multiple times. So if you just run it once, you don't see it, but on the second or third time you run it, you will. So let's replace text. Let's go back in. And replace it with that longer test value again. Okay, so now we see that if we go back into our text layer here, if we grab these letters, we have those original value of 50 that we originally made that text. Because like I say, Photoshop is still keeping that value buried in its values and it's using that. So I don't know why that occurs. It just does. But if you create your text, throw this away here. Let's create this text again. Let's do the same thing here. Let's make it 50. Oops, didn't mean to change that. Let's just go. Make that 50 there. All right, so if you want to ensure this never happens and you need to resize your text, instead of Command T or Control T to scaling, instead, let's first make this point text. All right, so now what you would do, instead of doing your Control T scale, you would just type in the value you want. And if that's not right, then you may need to go back and then select it again and type something else in. But if you're always using this and never using this to size your text, you're not going to see that. So now if we go back in and retest this, and we'll do the same thing. We'll go from less characters to more. So now you see all of our characters remain that same height, and so they're all maintaining that value of 170. So if we highlight any of these characters and not able to, there we go, just get just one there, it's 170, whereas the other one was 50 on those last characters. Now, if you're buying a template from a vendor, even if you use this value to change the size, you don't know if they've applied a Command or Control T to scale it. And so anything they've done with that in the template that you've purchased, those values are going to be buried in Photoshop. And then you may see that issue with this here. Like I say, that only in the test environment, not in the actual batch environment. So there's a couple things if you have a template that you purchased that did it. Now this is one that I created just for this example, and I forced it to do that. None of the templates that I make will have this because I know about that, so I make sure I type everything in here and don't scale. So I know none of the ones that I have will do it, but I forced this one to, for this demonstration. So if you want to test a template that has this issue, for example, I'll show you this one does have the issue. Let's go. So this template was saved with that issue. If you need to test the text multiple times, the best way to do that is in your history tab. Each time you run that, go back to the first history, because this only happens when ran multiple times in a row. So if each time you're doing that, you undo your history, it's never going to have multiple occurrences of that text replacement, so you will never see that occur. And if you wanted to just make a new text layer that you know didn't have the issue, what you would have to do is come in here and make we can get somewhere else where we're not going to be clipped there. Let's call this the same. And of course, you would convert that to point text. Or you could use your convert to point text in here to do that as well. So you can completely recreate your text layer. And then for any layer styles, if you right click, copy layer style, right click, paste layer style. And then we need to grab our color adjustments. So now I've just created a new layer that should not have the issue anymore. Oops. Threw the wrong thing away. Oh, that's not what I want. There we go. So now that I've made a new layer and reapplied the layer style and made sure I only used the numbers as scaling, not the scaling, this should now be immune to that issue. So we'll start out with the small text. Anyway, this video probably drug on longer than it needed to, but I'm just showing you all the ways to correct this and what's going on here. So that way you know how to address it. So anyway, I wish there wasn't a bug there in Photoshop. I've reported this one over the years, a couple of occasions. It's been there for at least 6 or 7 years. They fixed it a couple times, and each time it comes back, it's a little bit different. And fortunately, this doesn't affect it in batch, only in here. And most people never need to use this once they learn SPA anyway, so it's not a huge deal. But now you know. Thanks for watching.